Hello? Hello? Hey everyone. Before starting today, I would just like to clarify something before we actually start. That being, I really, and I mean really, love FNaF. And that's not to be taken as a joke. I genuinely love this series. Or, as much as I hate to say it, it slowly went from I love the series to I loved the series. You see, the reason why I loved FNaF is not because of the fandom's animations or their headcanons, or even to the gameplay itself. I loved it because it once had a story that was simple, dark, unnerving, for the most part clear-cut. It was a tale of innocence being ripped away by one man, as that innocence turns from something that should have been friendly, but completely turning it on a dime. Animatronic characters being stuffed with the bodies of children is honestly a very dark concept to think about, and the whole story of spirits wanting revenge on a man who in turn gets punished the same way by getting trapped in an animatronic of his own was genuinely unique for the time that the game had been put out. It had never been done before. The creator, Scott Cawthon, may have made things up as he went along, but I'd say for the first 3 games, which I consider as the original trilogy, had a dark, clear-cut story that we could piece together within due time. And for a while, that was the end. The story felt complete, and there really wasn't a need to go forward. Now, you may be asking, why is the title calling the lore broken if it's been cut and dry from 1 to 3? Well, if you know anything about this series, then you would know that the series did not end with FNaF 3. Later that summer, we got FNaF 4, FNaF World. Following soon with it, we got Sister Location, Pizza Simulator, VR, AR, and then the latest game in the series, being its biggest yet, Security Breach, as well as small spin-offs, a novel trilogy, and goosebump-like stories called Fazbear Frights. Now, as great as all of this sounds on paper, cause believe me, minus my feelings, I applaud Scott for his accomplishments, and he deserves his retirement. But even though I am happy for him, the things that came out after FNaF 3 honestly just adds onto the lore in a way that honestly feels out of touch. At times, turning a simple horror story into a sci-fi mess of random plot threads that are there for no reason, or retcons that genuinely make you scratch your head, making you go, well, what does this mean in the grand scheme of things? How does this make sense? Why is William Orange here? Why is this here? How did these become these, along with many, many other things? And I want to explain that in today's video. I want to talk about the FNaF lore, or what I could piece together, as I don't think anybody can really think of a genuine concrete timeline. Hell, even MatPat seems to have given up.
Actually about? No one theory actually solves it all in a clean way. There are references to every corner of the FNaF universe in here, but as a result, nothing fits cleanly together to solve everything. There are pieces that always dangle or always contradict something else.
So, before anyone goes, well, actually, in the comments, just know that I genuinely don't know everything. Because truth is, we don't know everything. The lore is broken, cut, and simple. All we're left with is the broken shards that do go together, but in all the wrong places. And today, I want to attempt to explain it, give my reasoning as to why I am slowly losing touch with a franchise I once really loved. But before we actually start, I want to clarify that I won't be covering the novel trilogy or Fazbear Frights, because according to Scott, these are in their own separate universes. There are only a few minor things that I will be bringing up from the books, but mainly I will only be going over the core games in the series, from 1 to 6 to VR, AR, and finally to Security Breach. Let's not waste time and get into this mess that is Five Nights at Freddy's. Our story begins with 2 individuals, these being William Afton, and Henry Emily, two mechanical engineers that would go on to create a small business called Fredbear's Family Diner. In this location, they would create the first two known animatronics in the FNaF timeline, this being Fredbear, the precursor to Freddy Fazbear, and Bonnie, or as the fandom calls him, Spring Bonnie. Two animatronics designed to both function as animatronic and suit. Why exactly? Well, somehow it's for cutting costs. I don't know how this makes sense, but this is a series where robots look like this in the 80s, so whatever. So the diner is a success with the people, popular enough to where they could have toys and even a TV series that featured the original FNaF gang, being Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica, alongside with Fredbear and Spring Bonnie in the show. Now, we are already reaching a point where I'm already unsure of some things, because for those that don't know yet, we're already reaching sister location territory. And with it, we start seeing Afton's dark side come out. You see, what was once perceived to be a sadistic serial killer from the original days from 2014 to 2015 is actually a sadistic madman and a broken scientist with a British accent who wants to experiment with things known as remnant and agony. Long story short, it's basically soul energy that connects with metal. And to test that, he creates these side animatronics known as the Fun Times, which has Circus Baby as its first robot in its own location called Circus Baby's Pizza World, along with being accompanied by the other animatronics called the Fun Times, such as Ballora, Funtime Freddy, and Funtime Foxy, and the Gremlins. We don't talk about the Gremlins. And long story short, William made these as a sister location to Fredbear's, as I would assume William probably wanted to expand the business. Oh, and side note that these things are kidnapping killing machines. You see, the Fun Times are built in with devices like luring items, voice mimicking, and so forth. Both Baby and Freddy have stomach capsules used to hold and kill kids. So, speaking of which, let's talk about the Afton children. Michael, Evan, and Elizabeth Afton are William's three children, which I assumed he cared about because William pretty much tells Elizabeth not to go towards Baby, even though it was made for her specifically.
Daddy, why won't you let me play with her? Daddy, you let the other children go see her. Why won't you let me go? Daddy, just once let me go play with her. She's so pretty and shiny. Didn't you make her just for me?
Now, I just want to know why someone would make a robot to kill kids specifically, and yet have your own child in the same building as them, let alone make one apparently for your daughter. It's honestly just, I don't know, it's really dumb when you think about it. And with that said, you probably guessed it, but Elizabeth doesn't listen to her father, and, well... So, what just happened there was Elizabeth getting snatched in the baby, presumably being crushed instantly, turning the once blue eyes of Baby to a bright shade of green. So, when William inevitably learns about this, I'd assume he told his remaining child, Evan, to not go to the diner nor the animatronics, but for the sake of making things interesting, this is just a personal headcanon of mine that I would like to bring up. I like to think that Evan actually witnessed Elizabeth's death from afar, causing his fear of his father's creations. Plus, it's just cool thinking that the Fredbear belly mouth could be a reference to this as well, as the "remember what you saw" line could be alluding to Baby's stomach hatch opening up like a mouth and taking Elizabeth inside. As I think it's pretty much confirmed that the Fredbear plush is William, as seen from Sister Location. I know that Baby wasn't made yet for the series, but it's an interesting way of looking at it. Again, just my personal headcanon. It's not concrete, but truth is we actually don't know how the aftermath happened. So just take that as me trying to put genuine depth into this situation. So after this, the fun times are put away for rental service in an underground location, which I may add is directly under the Afton household. Anyways, Fredbear's goes on, but during this time, Evan, or Bite Victim, whatever you want to call him, has panic attacks and downright breaks down because of the animatronics, along with Michael scaring him with a Foxy mask constantly. Now you may say, oh yeah, he has nightmares of the characters. And for a time, I believe that this was the intention, as FNaF 4 did call these things the Nightmare animatronics, and it's a given that we do play as Evan here. But with later releases and context given through other small details, it may actually be a thing that these Nightmare animatronics are actually real robots designed to scare Evan away from Fredbear's. Don't believe me? Take a look here. The most damning evidence of this is from Sister Location, where we see the Fredbear plush and monitor showing Evan's room. And this. See that? See that right around the sides? You guessed it. It's a direct layout of the FNaF 4 map with multiple squares placed where certain characters come from. Hell, even Plushtrap has one. Now, you may be thinking, how's that possible? The whole thing's a nightmare, right? Well, we actually learned from the books that there exists a device known as an illusion disc, which can wrap an animatronic into something it's not with a frequency. So, as out of left field as this is, I think the nightmares are just regular endoskeletons with illusion discs, projecting Evan's fears into them, giving them their trying too hard to be scary look. I know a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but if you really look past it, it's there. Plus, with a whole factory under the house, that's probably where the nightmares go once it's 6 a.m. It's weird. It's ridiculous. It's FNaF. So let's move on to what happens next. During this point in the timeline, I would assume William is kind of breaking at the seams in some spots, as this is where he would commit one of his many crimes. This is when William would take out his first victim, this being Charlie Emily, the daughter of Henry. On a rainy day at Fredbear's, Charlie was somehow locked outside by a group of bullies, and shortly after, William drives up alongside her and kills her, being masked in the rain, and proceeds to dump her body in the alleyway before driving off with no one seeing. Now, as for why William killed Charlie, we don't know. Maybe it was out of rage, maybe he was drunk, or maybe he was jealous of Henry, who still had a kid to call his own. His motive is unknown, but for me, this is the spark of what I would call the beginning of the whole soul thing, as the puppet, who was locked inside by the boxes, escaped out into the rain and tracked Charlie to the alleyway, using its bracelet detection device. It then breaks down in the rain until it crumples to Charlie's side, as they both die, being soaked in the rain. Charlie's soul then becomes one with the puppet, giving it its tear-stained look. After killing Charlie, William speeds away in his car until trying to stop by... Wait. Why is he orange? Wait. Why is he orange? Okay. Well, this figure is presumed to be William by the fandom, and for some reason, if this is true, Scott made him orange. Alright. We see William try to enter what I guess is a bar or diner. I don't know. It could be a Freddy's, but honestly, if it was, I'm sure we would see the name. So, I'm just gonna rule that out, that this is some kind of bar. And apparently this Junior's location is just there for being there. And pretty much, if this is William, he isn't allowed inside. I'm not sure what this all implies, so let's just move on. William gets home to what's speculated to be Michael or Mrs. Afton watching a TV, evidenced by, the sister location TV here. But as for which one it is, I don't know. I'm only assuming it's Michael because of the gray shirt, but again, we don't know. William then essentially tries to break into what we can assume to be Evan's room, with Michael or Mrs. Afton protesting. When he can't get through, he goes around back to find the window shattered with animatronic footprints. And all he says is that he went to that place again. I'm sorry, what? I've tried to look at this from literally any angle, and I just can't find the meaning in it. My only theory is that this could be an explanation as for why William tried scaring Evan with the nightmares, but that already throws a fork in my theory, because what the hell did Evan actually see then? Why are there footprints outside? Where did he run to? Is this a twisted one? Are the nightmares actually buried outside and come out at night? Like, what is the meaning of this minigame? It doesn't answer anything. It just gives us more questions, and frankly, I'm done, because it doesn't matter anyway, because Evan dies. So, what we just saw there was the bite of 87. Oh, yeah. Apparently, this is actually the bite of 83. Let me explain. So, in short, during the promotion of FNaF 4, all the teasers said, "Was it me?" in the background, with a bunch of 8s and 7s being plastered everywhere, suggesting that we would see the bite of 87 in this game. But because of one tiny detail on the TV, for some reason, everyone lost their minds, and even Scott retconned it to the bite happening in 83 instead of 87 because of one little detail. And even then, Evan dies and goes on to possess Fredbear, Golden Freddy, because apparently in FNaF 1, the victim survived.
Too, but then there was the bite of 87. Yeah. It's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe, now, concerning your safety...
Yeah, sure, Evan does survive for a little bit, but then he dies either way, with the whole "I'll put you back together" thing presumably being said by William through the Fredbear plush. I don't know. Now, one thing I'll never understand is why everyone literally lost it at the 1983 here. Honestly, this whole thing could have been in 87, but for some reason, everyone took it as this being the exact year the game was taking place. And I guess Scott agreed with it. So, in long story short, there are technically 2 bites in the series, and the 87 bite is still unknown who did it, but apparently the victim is probably Jeremy. So let's move on before I get more irritated with this stupid decision. So, after this event, Fredbear's closes and the Springlock suits are discontinued. William is left with one son and a possible wife that either left him or that he killed. We know he at least had one from the little setup from Security Breach, and during this time I can only assume William snapped fully. But also during this time, Fredbear's was rebranded into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and 4 new characters were constructed as full-leveled animatronics. This being Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. Now, this is where we get to the missing children's incident. The children consist of several kids, the most notable being Gabriel, Fritz, Susie, Jeremy, and Cassidy, and Charlie. And as for when they were killed, we don't exactly know for certain, but it's believed the incident happened around 1984, 85, and 86. And for the second incident, that happened in 87, most likely. Now, if you're casual when it comes to FNaF, you probably would think that they were all killed together. But this actually isn't true. Rather, the kids were taken out separately from one another in the span of a few days. So, let's start off with the first 5 original victims. Susie was the first one, and her death date is unknown, but we know how it happens from this minigame in FNaF 6, which essentially suggests that William hit Susie's dog with the car, and in turn tells Susie that the dog is actually okay, but this was most definitely a ruse to lure Susie into the back room and kill her. Later on the date of June 26, 2 more children are lured away and killed by William, which, may I add, is now wearing the Spring Bonnie suit to act out his kills. In the novels, we learn that Spring Bonnie is like another look for him, and he has a very weird attachment to the suit, so I would assume the same applies in game canon. Soon, 3 more kids are taken away and killed in the back room of the building, with William being charged, but with little evidence tracking William back to the scene, he walks away a free man. Now, how were the kids not found, you may be asking? Well, we have Charlie to thank for that one, because at this point in the timeline, Charlie is in full control of the puppet, and seeing the children's bodies, she does something for the kids that she herself was granted: a second chance. Charlie gives gifts to the kids, and in turn gives them life. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, and then Golden Freddy, or Fredbear, whatever you want to call him, now contain the bodies of the missing children and are reborn anew. With time, the new Freddy's was running and being a success, but it wasn't long until the guests began noticing the smell of rotting flesh coming from the animatronic mascots, as well as noticing blood and mucus leaking from their eyes and mouths within due time. The first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is soon shut down, and the animatronics are scrapped. Somehow, though, the kids' bodies were never found, minus all the suspicion. Either this is a plot hole, or Williams soon took notice of this and discarded the bodies himself. We don't really know. After some time, Fazbear Entertainment decides to reopen the restaurant again in 1987, with the new characters known as the Toy Animatronics, who are rebranded versions of the original cast. These quote-unquote toy animatronics have built-in security systems installed to hopefully not have a repeat of history. However, the old models are kept in the back and presumably used as spare parts, as well as the puppet who is stationed at Prize Corner. During this time, Fazbear Entertainment catches wind of the animatronics being the Roman Knight, and I can only assume something tragic happened to a night guard before the one we play as, being Jeremy, because soon the guard would have to wear a mask to keep the robots away. Now again, we don't know for certain as to how Fazbear Entertainment found this out or determined, but somehow they chalked it up to a late night roaming mode. Perhaps it was just a cover-up considering how supposedly shady they are with that stuff. And again, just to try to make things simple, I would like to think this is when William caught wind of what his actions had caused, because during this time is when I believe William would soon begin testing with the Funtime animatronics. Keep in mind though that that's just a hypothesis. Honestly, if you think about it, sister location can really be placed anywhere in the timeline, except after FNaF 1, because I would think William needs to be alive to actually force Michael down there. So let's just move on before... Jesus Christ, let's just go on. Throughout FNaF 2, we play as the guard named Jeremy, who could also be Mike, but that's up for speculation. I personally fall on the Jeremy side, as I think that makes for a better story, for what I'll explain later. Jeremy sticks up with the many animatronics around the pizzeria until we reach night 6, where we hear this phone call.
What on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right. Listen, just finish your shift. It's safer than trying to leave in the middle of the night. We have one more event scheduled for tomorrow, a birthday. You'll be on day shift. Wear your uniform. Stay close to the animatronics and make sure they don't hurt anyone, okay? For now, just make it through the night. When the place eventually opens again, I'll probably take the night shift myself. Okay, good night and good luck.
That's right. Another set of children go missing. Another 5 seen in the FNaF 2 minigame as we follow the puppet, in which we hear Freddy, that's what I believe, Freddy presumably saying SAVETHEM. Save them. I like to think that this is probably the spirit in Freddy asking Charlie to save the other kids, but again, this is just speculation and really loose-ended. And if you're lucky to encounter William, who's still in the building, he shuts down Freddy and gets away with another set of murders. A set of murders where he presumably uses to test his new remnant-like experiments. Now, as for happened with these kids' souls, I would say they possess the toy animatronics. However, after this, they're never seen again as the toys are scrapped, probably leaving these souls as mindless wanderers in the pizzeria to follow. Soon after this event, the bite of 87 occurs, and the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closes its doors. Six years go by, and Fazbear Entertainment is short on money. And Lord knows where Henry is at this point, because he hasn't been brought up since. But in another effort, Fazbear Entertainment tries to reopen their doors again. This time by reworking the older models into the classics we see in FNaF 1, and reopen Freddy Fazbear's Pizza again. We know that the puppet is still here as provided by FNaF 2's cutscenes, and it's widely believed that she is backstage. But during this time of preparation of reopening, I want a detour where I personally believe Sister Location takes place. I've always believed that Sister Location takes place around the events of FNaF 1 or FNaF 2, as again, you can really put it almost anywhere. Essentially, the story is that William sends Michael down to the underground factory to try and put Elizabeth back together, as given to what he says in its ending cutscene.
Father, it's me, Michael. I did it. I found it. It was right where you said it would be. They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you. And I found her. I put her back together, just like you asked me to.
This process goes on for a solid 5 nights of Michael surviving the funtime animatronics. And before people ask, Ballora is not confirmed to be Mrs. Afton. It's simply a popular headcanon, but again, this isn't confirmed to be true. It's a really cool theory that I personally like, but again, not confirmed. The funtime animatronics by this point are aware that they've been trapped, abandoned, and forgotten. And I can only assume William tested on them to hell and back, as they act like humans in some weird way, with what some of them say. Mainly Ballora and a bit of Funtime Freddy.
Is someone there? Is it time for the show? I can hear someone creeping through my room.
I know you're over there somewhere! I know you're over there somewhere! I see you over there in the dark! Come on out!
They're broken, psychotic, they're monsters, they're machines with one goal. It's scary. And in the end, Michael manages to, I guess, save his sister from Baby. but at a price, as during Michael's visits, the Funtimes coordinated a plan to escape, in which they fused their bodies together to become one being, a mashup of parts named Ennard, in which they lure Michael into an area called the Scooping Room, where a machine called the Scooper is established. Scooper, scalable creation of ulterior presence. A, excavating arm. B, remnant injector. I'll explain this again real quickly, but remnant is essentially soul energy that is connected with living metal. You see, when a Funtime kills someone, they essentially absorb that victim's remnant. When it's all said and done, the Scooper does what its name implies and scoops the animatronic to collect remnant from within it. Why? Because at this point, William is probably realizing that he could, as ridiculous as it sounds, could be immortal or something, and wants a lot of energy to succeed in that goal. Because that is the presumed theory, and that's also why he probably comes back as Springtrap. Dude's probably been injecting remnant into himself like Walter. Confused or lost? Me too. Let's keep going. So, what happens next is, well, I have it written as simple here, but that's not true.
You are in the scooping room now. Funtime Foxy has already been here today. Funtime Freddy has already been here today. Ballora has already been here today. Circus Baby has already been here today. I've been out before, but they always put me back. They always put us back inside. There's nowhere for us to hide here. There is nowhere to go when we look like this. But if we looked like you, then we could hide. If we looked like you, then we would have somewhere to go. The scooper only hurts for a moment.
So basically, Michael gets scooped, and Ennard uses him as a flesh suit because Elizabeth and the Funtimes want to live a normal life. Weird, I know. And with that, they actually succeed for a short while. But eventually, Michael's flesh rots, and Ennard is soon barfed out into the sewers, leaving Mike's lifeless husk to crumble to the sidewalk. But then, we hear the voice of Baby saying that he won't die.
You won't die. You won't die. You won't die. You won't die. You won't die. You won't die. You won't.
And seconds later, Michael gets up, alive. This is because when Michael was scooped, he had remnant injected into him. Which, it's weird. Like, it's really sci-fi. But, hey, we're on to the original game now, so let's go. We play as a guard named Mike Schmidt, but this person is also to believe Michael Afton, as Golden Freddy appears with its text saying, "It's me," suggesting that it's Evan trying to communicate. But I don't know why Mike would be here other than to try to help the kids. But for if this mysterious Mike Schmidt is actually Michael Afton or not, that's honestly up for you to decide. So Mike survives all 5 nights with a measly paycheck, but we also learn some stuff from Phone Guy, who's been working there shortly before Mike. Here's some takeaways.
There's an introductory greeting from the company that I'm supposed to read. It's kind of a legal thing, you know. Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a magical place for kids and grown-ups alike, where fantasy and fun come to life. Fazbear Entertainment is not responsible for damage to property or person. Upon discovering that damage or death has occurred, a missing person report will be filed within 90 days or as soon as property and premises have been thoroughly cleaned and bleached and the carpets have been replaced. Blah, blah, blah. Now, that might sound bad, I know, but there's really nothing to worry about. Oh, hey,
out day 4. I think you can do it. Hey, listen, I may not be around to send you a message tomorrow. It's been a bad night here for me. I'm kind of glad that I recorded my messages for you. So when I did, hey, do me a favor. Maybe sometime you could check inside those suits in the back room. I'm gonna try to hold out until someone checks. Maybe it won't be so bad. I always wondered what was in all those empty heads back there. You know. Oh
no. Sadly, Phone Guy is killed and never heard from again. Minus the training tapes in FNaF 3 though. But from him, we learned just how shady Fazbear Entertainment really is, and the efforts they put forward to keep themselves out of the public eye. But with due time, this location shuts down as well, closing for good. Within the short time the building is left abandoned, everything is quickly stored away and left forgotten. But William catches wind of this, and I personally think this is where he strikes the idea to finally cover his tracks. William returns to Freddy's and dismantles each character to finally put an end to the trail he started many years ago. He takes out each animatronic one by one, releasing their souls from their body. And I should also add that Shadow Freddy and Bonnie are here. And long story short, it's believed that their forms are just personified agony, I think. And in all honesty, they're really irrelevant. They're just kind of here. Minus an AR where Shadow Bonnie's there. But other than that, they're really pointless. But as all the animatronics are destroyed, the souls are freed from their capsules and confront William in an area known as the safe room, where one spirit, which I believe is either to be Charlie or Cassidy, scares William to the point where he gets into the old faulty springlock suit. Thinking he's won, William begins to laugh, but due to old age, sporadic movements, and the moistened area, William's short triumph is cut short. "30 years. 30 years of William rotting away in a room that had been boarded up. But in 2023, or what we can presume to be 2023, a small horror attraction called Fazbear Frights appears in an opened-up amusement park. The attraction itself is not made by Fazbear Entertainment, but rather a random group of people trying to bank off the stories and tragedies from Freddy's. And as they neared opening, a group of salvagers uncover the old Spring Bonnie suit in a safe room and bring it to the attraction, where somehow they didn't notice there was a clear corpse in there, but whatever. And since William had been experimenting with remnant, and with souls being fused to metal, William returns as a reanimated corpse called Springtrap, where we fend him off within another 5 nights. As we play the game, we encounter phantom-like versions of the animatronics, which could imply that the character we play as is either Michael or possibly Henry. To be honest, either or can work, in my opinion. But the phantoms are really just there as a distraction. Maybe being projected by William, because if I'm recalling, that's actually a small detail from a Fazbear's Fright story. But again, who knows, because there's little context for them. But enough of that. After the 5th night, it's revealed that the horror attraction had actually burned down, possibly being caused by either Michael or Henry, or maybe just from the wiring, but whatever happened exactly does not matter, as Afton survives and escapes into the wilderness. After this, several events occur as well, one being the puppet escaping from the fire too, and somewhere else Baby is actually ejected from Ennard and left to fend off for her own terms. And Henry finally returns out of nowhere and pretty much explains why he's been missing. I think this dialogue from FNaF 6 clarifies it, so have a listen. I think this might actually be one of the best lines in the series.
It's only now that I understand the depth of the depravity of this creature, this monster that I unwillingly helped to create. As if what he had already done wasn't enough, he found a new way to desecrate, to humiliate, to destroy. As if the suffering wasn't enough, the loss of innocence, the loss of everything to so many people. Small souls trapped in prisons of my making, now set to new purpose, and used in ways I never thought imaginable. He lured them all back to a familiar place, back with familiar tricks. He brought them all together. Are they still aware? I hope not. It keeps me awake at night. I could make myself sleep, but not yet. Not until I undo what he has done and heal this wound. A wound first inflicted on me, but then one that I let bleed out to cause all of this. He set some kind of trap. I don't know what it was, but he led them there again. He overpowered them again, and he robbed them of the only thing that they had again. I don't know how those tiny breaths of life came to inhabit those machines, but they will never find rest now, not like this. I have to call them all back, all of them, together in one place.
Henry is done hiding, and he hatches a plan to finally end the nightmare that William had created. In some way, he finds and recruits Michael, and they scrunch up enough money to reopen a smaller location that would be a trap for all the remaining animatronics out there, under paragraph 4. During this time, Henry creates a robot called Lefty that's sent out and captures the puppet. William at this point has not only found a new suit, but has possibly regrown muscle tissue and bones because of the remnant within him. Baby has rebuilt herself up with spare parts, and Ennard simply modified themselves with a new Freddy mask. As the building is created, each spirit is lured in night by night. Molten Freddy arrives first, then Afton, then Scrap Baby, and then Puppet, or Lefty, whatever you want to call it. Once they're all in one place, Henry sets the trap, and then this happens.
I will make you proud, Daddy. Watch, listen, and be full.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms, the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest, for you, and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
It's over. All of it. They all burn, putting an end to the nightmare in what I considered to be a pretty great ending. If only that were the case. From this point on, for me, in my humbled opinion, is honestly where I feel like the story takes a turn from an already kinda stumbling one to just a downright face-slapping story. But again, this is my opinion. If you like these next few games, that's great. But for me, this is my honest view on what came after FNaF 6, and as to why I'm slowly losing touch with the series I once loved. The next game in the timeline is Ultimate Custom Night, a giant mashup custom night game of all the characters that, believe it or not, is actually canon. The lore relevancy here is that we are either playing as William or Michael as we're trapped in hell or purgatory. The reason why I say either or is because we don't know, as the voice lines we hear can allude to both characters, with the one you should not have killed being the main culprit.
Greetings from the fire, and from the one you should not have killed.
I am remade, but not by you, by the one you should not have killed.
He's here and always watching. The one you should.
Oh my god, we get it! And since Golden Freddy technically has two souls inside of them, with one affected by William and another by Michael, it really just makes me want to slam my head into a wall because of how complicated it gets. So, as my friends like to put it, they like to believe that it can be both. Enough said. The game ends with one of them moving on anyways, or at least I think. And the next thing we know, William somehow comes back as a digital entity. Now, how is that even possible? We saw him burn, and we played as him possibly through hell. So how did he come back? Because f*** it, that's why. Basically, Fazbear Entertainment somehow returns with a company called Silver Parasol, even though they were established to be a non-corporate entity at the end of FNaF 6.
Thank you for your participation. There is no need for you to return to work next week, as Fazbear Entertainment is no longer a corporate entity.
Essentially, they make a VR game based on the tragedies presented at Freddy's. And get this, apparently a rogue indie game developer went out and made games based on the series, suggesting that FNaF-like games actually exist in FNaF. What the hell? But another twist, turns out Fazbear Entertainment hired the indie dev to clear up their shit. And now Fazbear Entertainment wants to market off that shit they covered up for $1. You catch all that? Good, because try to pay attention some more. To do this, they literally scan things from the location, like little cards, I think, and port them into the VR game, which somehow creates a perfect representation. It like, what the hell? Let me repeat that. They scan discs, I think, from the locations that somehow map out the locations. What the hell? And somehow, William's essence got attached along with it, becoming a virus in the game that tries to take over bodies to get back into the real world. Oh my god. So long story short, another guy named Jeremy freaking dies from himself trying to resist William. And then we have Tape Girl, someone who discovers the virus, breaks the code, and hides it around the game. That is until a woman named Vanessa eventually puts the tapes back together and becomes a reluctant follower of Afton, sparking the next series of little tragedies for the series. If you can't hear it in my voice, I already want to drive off a bridge because this whole plot point is just so dumb to me. If you like it, more power to you. But for me, this just feels like a cheap way of bringing William back. So the VR game sells, and Fazbear Entertainment makes a new rental service where someone can rent out an animatronic for a day or two. During this time, William infects the robots, people die, and Bonnie eats a cat. I'm not joking on that one. And Vanessa begins crafting her Fursona suit. Soon, the rental service is discontinued, I think, and with enough money, Fazbear Entertainment somehow, with the money from a VR game and rental service, are able to make a 3-story mega pizzaplex. Let's just get this over with, we're almost done. Security Breach, as of right now, is the latest game in the timeline. We follow Gregory, who is an orphan kid who gets trapped inside the pizzaplex from 12 to 6. We have Freddy, who's like a father figure, and they survive the night going against animatronics that attack them as they're possessed by William's spirit. And I just want to say, Security Breach is probably my least favorite game in the series. The story Security Breach presents gives, in my opinion, nothing but unsatisfying conclusions, as all the endings feel bland to me. Vanny was teased to be a big character in the previous 2 entries, but turned out to be a genuinely wasted character, with barely any dialogue and appearances in the game, even though she was set up to be possibly this Jekyll and Hyde-like character of good and bad in the teasers. She also has this goofy running animation that is not scary. All the characters have like 4 lines, the game is buggy the hell and back, and the story is just disappointing. We barely learn anything besides a few simple tapes and items. Gregory is never fully explained. He's just there with no backstory other than he's a homeless kid or a freaking robot. Thanks, Matt. And my god, the worst thing about this game, in my humbled opinion, is the Afton ending. This ending, in my opinion, completely ruins the impact of FNaF 6. To me, William returning as a zombie corpse again after 2 fires is one of the most disappointing returns I've ever seen from any character. Not to mention Blob. Why? Why? Oh, and when you look who's there, they don't even look like how they previously looked. Okay. Sure, it could be said that Elizabeth could have moved on. It could also be said that Charlie moved on because, no tears. But if that's the case, why would they put them on there in the first place? Like, we don't even see them in the main game. Putting them there just... oh my god. It's just the fact that they're there in a giant mess of wires that's alive already has me worried, as this is clearly Molten Freddy. This ending shows the plan that Michael and Henry had, their efforts of pain and sacrifice of years of work, was all for nothing. The ending of FNaF 6 means jack because somehow they all, at least 2, I believe, survived a closed-off burning room. How? And even after this quote-unquote boss fight with Afton, which is literally just a run-down, watered version of FNaF 1, Afton is snatched away by Blob to an unknown area, already kind of stating that his corpse of a character is going to be back again after all of this. The ending has Gregory and Freddy on a hill, and that's it. This ending, this goddamn ending, felt like such a punch in the gut for me. It fills me with so much rage that I can't understand why the hell they were thinking of making it. All of this will lead to just another repeat of FNaF 3 or 6. At this point, if you're just gonna bring these 2 back, you may as well make Glamrock Freddy Michael or Henry, cause f*** it, I guess. Let's just repeat the same story because we don't have any original ideas for William. Not to mention Vanny isn't even in the final battle. She's just gone. And William is probably out there riding Blob like a f***ing bantha.
I got bantha.
This ending infuriates me so much that I'm just not even interested in what's gonna come next, as William for me went from a genuine unique villain to an 80s slasher that keeps coming back from ridiculous ways. Not to mention that Security Breach didn't even scare me. It feels too bright and colorful. And this is, and I hate to say it, but FNaF has clearly fallen into the horror games for kids category, and is now drifting away from what made me a fan in the first place. I truly miss the original days, the original 3, when FNaF was dark and at its peak, The story was simple, not overcomplicated with its sci-fi scientific bullshit. Don't get me wrong, Remnant is a cool concept. The fun times are a cool concept. Hell, animatronics roaming at night in the 80s is already punching the gun when it comes to sci-fi. As I'm willing to accept those things. Only if it's done right and not a cop-out to do stupid shit like this. FNaF is what made me a horror fan. Without it, I wouldn't have found games like Resident Evil or Silent Hill. And without it, I wouldn't have met some of my best friends today. But even though it's given me a lot, doesn't mean I'm just gonna stand with it and just accept what it's doing. Because this is not the FNaF I once loved. It's clearly going in a new direction. And minus everything. Minus my distaste towards it. Minus what I've said. That's okay. Look, I may not like what they're doing now. I may not even stick around for its next release. But no matter what I say or what others voice, the series will go on. And for those that enjoy it for what it is now, I'm glad you can find enjoyment in something that I can't. I'm someone who likes a good story. I'm someone who likes horror. And that's what FNaF was for me. A good story that slowly fell with me as it became overcomplicated and retcon-y for me, making the lore broken in my eyes. And you see, there can be a solid story here. Absolutely, 100%. The problem, though, is the loose threads within and certain decisions that make the story feel unhinged, as random things are just kind of thrown at the wall, like the footprints outside, the Bite of 87 retcon, whatever FNaF World was. When you stuff too much into a pie, inevitably it will explode from something good into a mess. That's how I feel with FNaF currently. To me, it overcomplicated things, and mostly the fandom complicated things with back and forth arguments that soon placed them in a specific mindset of what's right and wrong. And I'm sure a lot of those kinds of people will be in the comments. The books don't help either, as they're set in separate worlds. Sure, there's details in there that can carry over, but I don't think stories like Fazgoo, Sea Bonnies, and In the Flesh of all things are going to help with the story and make it any easier to understand. In my honest opinion, it just makes things more complicated. With, do these exist in FNaF canon? If so, then it just turns me further away from the series. To me, bigger never means better. Sometimes the smallest things can hold the biggest surprises. And that's how FNaF felt in the beginning. A simple indie point-and-click game that revolutionized indie horror, spawning millions of fan games and fans, bringing people together over something as simple as point-and-click that was made out of spite by Scott. And speaking of which, Scott truly made something incredible. Minus my current feelings, it's nothing to do with him. It was his decision, and that's his decision. Sure, I don't like the decision, but he called the shots, and he thought it was the right move. As someone who writes stories, I can understand that mindset, but for me personally, it just didn't work. But minus it all, Scott did something that was once in a lifetime chance, as he went from a struggling cashier to the owner of a multi-million-dollar game series. Scott is an inspiration, really. He showed all of us that anything is possible, even that your dreams of success can be done minus all the downsides to life. I will always love the first 3 games, and I'll enjoy the later 4 for years to come. And yes, that includes you, FNaF World. But as for my time as a follower of the series, I think it just ends here, and I just wanted to talk about it. Wherever FNaF goes next is where it goes. There's no stopping it at this point. Maybe it'll reel me back in. I really hope it does, because it truly saddens me that I'd want to drop all this. So who knows what'll come next. But anyways, that's pretty much it. I decided to release this video on Easter because, you know, funny bunny. But I really hope you guys can kind of understand where I'm coming from, because I love the series. I loved it. And I really hope you enjoyed I guess, maybe. I don't know. But I really got nothing else to say. I'll see you all in the next video. Happy Easter, everyone.